What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and we're back in Space Engineers and back doing a bit of testing and a bit of concept work, but this time on something a little bit new. And I thought that it might be quite interesting that instead of creating these player-made weapons of mass destruction, we looked a little bit at what you can do if your intent is merely to disable your target. You know, it could be you're trying to capture the cargo ships, it could simply be you're in a PvP battle and you could really be using the resources of the enemy ship, or even you could really use the enemy ship itself. And the idea here is to try and create something that's been seen in real life, known as an Airburst rocket. So just back on the range here with a bit more testing, but these are designed to emulate that, and the idea with those is that they explode slightly before they hit the target. So they explode in the air, increasing the coverage of that missile by sending shrapnel everywhere, and what it also does is cause less terminal damage to whatever it's being fired at. And having played around a little bit with these things, which are literally just a reactor, some warheads and a sensor, I've found that there's some very interesting results at certain ranges. So basically we have two here set to slightly different ranges, and I'm going to start off with the white one. And this white one, I'm just literally just going to fire it at that, let's get rid of it a little bit, there we go. I'm going to launch it at that 2 thick block of light armor in front of me. I'm going to follow it as it goes in, and it's going to go pop, and as you can see, it hasn't damaged that light armor. The light armor is fine. But the interesting thing comes if I now fire it at this, which is exactly the same thing, but as you can see, with a few other components stuck into it, as if they were on the outside of the ship, like thrusters would be. If we come in and launch this one. Now there, very interestingly, all it destroys is the thrusters, and it slightly deforms the armor around them as they destroy, but everything else is left completely intact. So if I go back now and grab this yellow one, and the main difference between these two is this is set to the magic number of 24.5 meters. And that's probably dependent on how many warheads you're using, but for 5 warheads against light armor, 24.5 meters will destroy the thrusters but leave everything else. This one is set to 22.75. And what this one's been designed to do, not surprisingly, is come in and it will have the same effects, except there'll be a little bit more damage to the light armor, and all of the components get destroyed. But the important part here is that first layer of armor is still alive. You know, a welder on that, it hasn't lost components, it would just be welded back together. Now this goes further, because obviously light armor is all well and good, but that's not really what you're going to be coming up against. So if we take this same 24.51 here, this is the 24.51, we take this over here, and as you can see we've got heavy armor variants now, so just for testing's sake, I'll launch this one off at that heavy armor, but as you can probably expect, it's not going to do anything to the heavy armor. It's going to go pop and everything's going to be intact. So there we go. Now again, for safety's sake, let's fire it here at this heavy armor, and as you would expect, thruster's gone, even on heavy armor. But I have made a final variant, which is this, and this is aimed purely at heavy armor ships, and this one has a 15 meter burst, so it goes off 15 meters before it hits the target. And the result with this one on both these two heavies, if I fire it in now, is that pop, it deforms the entire front layer of armor but leaves it completely intact. Nothing is destroyed, it's only deformed. Exactly the same as you can see by the corner of that if we'd fired it at one without components in at all. It will ruffle the entire front edge of the armor, deforming the lot, destroying any components that are on the surface, but leaving the interior of the ship and the surface of the ship completely intact for you to repair. So I thought that was really interesting, quite how sensitive to distances they were. And of course, the nice thing about this is, now I've shown you that on there, I can also fire it across at, as you might recognise by now, it's the command bomber, the heavily armoured thingy. Let's see what happens when we launch this just somewhere at the front. Hopefully I've aimed that well. I have no idea why I decided to do it from so far away, or so slowly. But hopefully as we come in, it's going to miss. Let's get rid of that and try again from a closer distance. So right at the front here, there she is. Come back towards me a bit. And let's launch her in. And again, heavy armor damage, very, very minimal. But all of the non-deformable items anywhere near it, so in this case all of those thrusters, have been destroyed, leaving the main part of the ship, including its internals, completely intact. And of course, same happens pretty much any layout you've got for these things. So that looks like it's going to explode a bit above, if it even triggers at all. Bad example. But yeah, that's going to come in, detect the ship, go boom, and yeah, those big thrusters down the side are destroyed. But the inside of the ship is remarkably undamaged. You could come in here and now salvage stuff, and the only thing you would be needing to rebuild is those thrusters, and looks like the end of that piston. So I took that concept, I thought, well, that's very cool, but obviously you're going to need a more practical application than I copy-paste warheads at you from quite close range. So I thought, okay, let's make that into something a little bit more practical. And this is where we get onto something that's it's not completely finished, because those damn merge blocks again don't do what I want them to do every time I use them. So just briefly, what we've got here is a projectile that contains that same sort of setup. So we have a bunch of warheads here. There's a sensor in there designed to look for a large ship. The difference with this one is it's also designed to protect itself, because if you fly one of those at a ship that's got even the tiniest bit of defense on it, they're just going to go pop the second they get touched. So you need something a bit more robust than that. So let's take this one here. And in fact, it looks like a good idea is I cut to some footage where I've actually got something to fire it at somewhere nearby. So 2 seconds. So now we actually have some appropriate targets. Let's give this thing a try. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste this. The idea would be that it would be fastened on the backside that we're looking at here with a merge block to whichever ship was launching it. And you would launch it like a kinetic missile, like my breach missiles previously. So just letting go of the merge block with the dampers off and then backing off so that it's let free forwards. But let's have a little see how it performs as we fly in. And I'm not going to go too fast so that we can see what happens as we come in. So this one's set to with the sort of 15-meter blast radius, because we're coming into heavy armor, and it's going to sense the ship, break away its cover, and then explode. Now, unfortunately, and this is the bit that it's kind of stopping this from working quite like I want, is that 50-meter sensor distance isn't really enough to give chance for the sort of arms of this to break off. So you can see as it comes in, what it's doing is before it breaks the merge blocks, a timer starts these thrusters, which have got forced thrust on them, and then breaks those 2 merge blocks, enabling this to split either side, because it's got a well, I don't know what you call that, a blast door section, so it's not actually connected. And then the warhead comes out the middle on a timer set to turn the sensor on to explode as soon as it gets close enough. But without covering those arms in thrusters, so that they're really, really quick, I haven't found a way of doing it in the 50-meter range you have. It takes too long for them to get out of the way. So at the moment, this is kind of only a concept, and I'd love to see if anyone has any further ideas. So there you go, there's a vague idea of what's happening. I think it managed to spot something that wasn't the heavy craft. But if I go back, I've got a couple of other variants, as always. So here we have one that aims to use gravity to try and help that whole process along. And of course that means it can't be used against a ship that has gravity. But we've got a spherical gravity generator in there, and then we've stuck mass blocks on the end. And again, I've just tied them into the timer in order to launch those turn the mass blocks and the gravity on as soon as it's in a suitable distance. So let's show this one in action. Does work. Again, in it comes, and you'll see that this time the mass blocks will light up, they'll fling away, and the thing burst explodes before it actually reaches the target. Now the unfortunate part is, as I said, this timing, I can't get the arms out of the way quick enough with a 50-meter sensor distance. I need to be able to activate them like 75 meters out or 80 meters out. The other problem I found, and this is where those pesky merge blocks come back in again, this works fine, that works fine, as you've seen. If I was to put another thruster on top of this one, it blows itself up. If I was to do what I've done over here, which was, okay, that seems to work, so let's make it tougher. Let's make sure that front end is going to survive the approach. And as you'll see when I launch this one, that doesn't work either, because it does exactly what I've been describing in the last 2 videos, where as it approaches the target, it's going to come in, it's going to trigger those merge blocks, and the whole thing's just going to explode. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to, again, expand these things any bigger, And I've tried so many different things that people have suggested, adding more mass in different sections, only using those single blocks. Someone said something about gyro bugs. There's no gyros on these, so I'm really a bit lost as to how to fix this one. If anyone's got any thoughts there, please let me know. But otherwise, that's the sort of concept I've been working towards. And I think they're pretty cool, and I think in particular, the fact that you can actively disable things and the fact that you can attack armor from a certain range and it will not damage that armor at all. All it will damage is the thrusters on the surface is awesome, and I'd really like to see what people come up with on those lines, because I don't think I've heard of anyone trying that sort of airburst thing before. And now, unfortunately, with that one, if you try it on a light ship like this, it kind of does what it's supposed to do, but it's a little bit too destructive. And again, sensor range, if I try and make it blow up further out, the arms haven't cleared. So yeah, I'm a bit stuck with this particular design. But the idea was to show you what's capable as far as disabling stuff is concerned. So you can see there, in fact, it left it quite intact, but the main thing it took out was the engines. And the same is true for turrets, by the way. Anything that does not deform does not like having things that deform next to it. So as soon as something deforms next to it, they will be destroyed. And that seems to be a consistent that we could probably make use of in this disabling project. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you found this kind of an interesting concept, and more importantly, I hope you found like the testing side of interesting, because I certainly thought that that was really quite cool, especially what was going on with these light armor blocks, where you'd think they'd be just obliterated by it, but in fact you can really control how much you're destroying by timing your detonations outside of the craft. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me in the channel out. Also want to give a big shout out to all the support I've got of late. Really love it, guys. Heading towards 1,000 subs. I'm going to do a big giveaway then that comes, so stick around, check that out when I announce it. But thank you very much for all your support. It means a huge amount. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.
Woo!